3:19 in the morning. My phone lit up the whole bedroom ceiling with a security alert. I didn't panic. I'd been waiting for this night for a long time. There on my camera feed, crystal clear because I made sure of that, was Diane Holloway, the self-appointed queen of Ridgecrest Hollow Highway, crouched at the entrance to my root cellar with a bolt cutter in her hands. She had a headlamp strapped over her hair, a canvas tote bag over one shoulder, and that clipboard she carries everywhere like it's a holy relic tucked under her arm. The woman had no idea I'd spent the last 4 months turning this moment into a trap she'd never wiggle out of. She clipped through the padlock, pulled open the door, stepped inside. I closed the app, walked to my kitchen, put a kettle on, and called the county sheriff's non-emergency line. But before I tell you exactly how Diane Holloway ended up locked underground in my hand-built root cellar at 3 in the morning, waiting for deputies to haul her out, you need to understand who this woman is, what she wanted, and just how far she was willing to go to get it. Because this story isn't really about a root cellar, it's about a predator who picked the wrong target. Drop your location in the comments. I want to know where my people are watching from. And when you're done, tell me your most unhinged HOA story, because I promise after this, you won't feel alone. My name is Ray Decker. Friends call me Decker. I'm 54, former Army Corps of Engineers, medically retired after a back injury that ended my construction career and rewired my entire life. I live on 4 acres outside Ridgecrest Hollow, Tennessee, land my family has held since my grandfather bought it off a foreclosure in 1961. When a development company carved the surrounding pastures into a subdivision about 12 years back, I was the one parcel they couldn't acquire. I said no, still say no. 2 years ago I built a root cellar on the back portion of my property. Took me almost a year of working in short bursts between physical therapy sessions. I have 2 herniated discs and chronic nerve damage in my left leg, so every hour of work cost me 2 days of recovery. But I built it. Proper concrete footer, drainage system, ventilation, the whole thing. Temperature stays between 38 and 52 degrees year-round. I grow and preserve most of my own food. Jars of tomatoes, green beans, corn, pickled vegetables, cured meats. When my disability check stretches thin at the end of the month, and it does every month, that cellar is what keeps me fed. It's not a hobby, it's a lifeline, and then Diane Holloway became president of the Ridgecrest Hollow HOA. Diane is 51 years old, a licensed real estate agent who drives a pearl white Range Rover with a bumper sticker that reads "Sold another one." She's been HOA president for 4 consecutive terms. Her husband Glenn sits on the county planning commission, a detail she works into nearly every conversation like a credit card she's waiting to swipe. She has the handshake of someone who's closed a lot of deals and the smile of someone who doesn't actually like people very much. Our first interaction happened on a Wednesday in late April. I was pruning my tomato plants when I heard the crunch of expensive shoes on my gravel path. Diane, clipboard already drawn, looked at my cellar entrance the way some people look at a stray dog, like it was someone else's problem that had become hers. "Mr. Decker, Diane Holloway, HOA president. I'm reaching out about a compliance issue." She handed me a violation notice. Unapproved accessory structure. Potential property value impact. 30 days to remediate or face daily fines starting at $60. I read it twice. "Ma'am, your HOA was incorporated 14 months ago. This structure's been here for 2 years. Doesn't prior existence protect it?" Her smile tightened. "Our governing documents address existing non-compliant structures. I'm sure someone with your background can appreciate the importance of following community standards." She said background the way people say condition. Like it was something unfortunate she was being gracious enough to overlook. She left. The faint chemical cloud of her perfume took longer. I didn't fold. Army engineers don't fold on the first contact. We document, we assess, we prepare a response. The violations started arriving like clockwork after that. Grass measured at 3.2 inches, limit is 3.0, $75 fine, garden hose visible from the road, $60, faded mailbox post, $60, debris near fence line, which was actually a cinder block I'd set down while checking my property marker, $80. By week 6, I'd accumulated nearly $500 in fines for infractions that had never bothered anyone before. Diane decided she needed them to, but I noticed something else. Diane wasn't just driving by to issue citations. She was studying my property. I'd see her on foot sometimes, pacing my fence line, taking photos of the cellar door, measuring sight lines from the road. She spent a lot of time looking at the ventilation pipe and the access ramp I'd built for easier loading. She was cataloging my property with the focus of someone who needed to know its features before making a move. I drove to the county courthouse and spent an afternoon in the records office. 2 things stood out. First, no formal complaint had been filed against my property by any neighbor. Second, a planning application submitted under an LLC called Holloway Development Partners for a mixed-use residential project, pending site control of a central parcel. The proposed footprint covered my 4 acres and 4 neighboring properties. My land was the geographic core of the entire development. Without it, the project didn't work. Without me gone, Diane's deal was dead. She wasn't running an HOA. She was running a land acquisition operation disguised as an HOA. The inspectors started arriving in May. A county building official showed up claiming an anonymous complaint about unpermitted underground construction. Spent most of his time photographing the exterior and measuring distances from my cellar to the road. Nothing about structural safety. I sent him away without access and logged the visit. Then a utility inspector claiming faulty buried electrical work. I produced the original 1998 permits in under 20 minutes and watched him drive off looking embarrassed. Then a health inspector, which was actually the most useful visit of all because she looked at my food storage setup with genuine admiration and told me it was one of the most properly organized home preservation systems she'd seen. She also confirmed off the record, while I was walking her out, that the complaint described commercial food sales which bore no resemblance to anything she'd actually found. The complaint was fiction. I started keeping a file. Every visit, every fine, every official communication. Time-stamped, photographed, cross-referenced against Diane's known movements. June brought the psychological phase of her campaign. An unsigned letter slid under my front door. Your neighbors find your property unsettling. People in this community have expressed concern about your patterns of behavior. Some feel unsafe. It's a well-worn playbook. No specific accusation, nothing actionable, just the insinuation that the disabled veteran might be unhinged. Plant the seed, let neighborhood gossip water it. She tried to recruit my neighbor Carl, who's known me for 8 years. He came to me directly and told me what she'd said, that I was showing signs of instability, that my obsession with that underground structure was troubling, that Carl, as my friend, should keep an eye on me. Carl told her that the only thing he'd observed was someone being systematically harassed, and that if she had concerns about instability, she might look closer to home. In July, I got a call from the VA regional office. A referral had been submitted through the county commissioner's planning office, Glenn Holloway's office, suggesting my service-connected disability may be affecting my capacity to maintain stable housing. They wanted to schedule a reevaluation. My hands weren't shaking when I heard that, but my jaw was. Attacking a veteran's benefits using fabricated behavioral reports is a federal crime. Diane had just crossed from state-level harassment into federal territory. I called a veteran's legal advocate that same afternoon. The attorney, Marcus Webb, listened to everything and said, "What you're describing is a coordinated pattern of fraud and targeted harassment against a protected class. If they've used government offices to advance it, we're potentially looking at federal civil rights violations. Keep documenting." I kept documenting. The turning point came in late July. I was at the county courthouse filing paperwork for a formal complaint when I caught a conversation drifting out of a conference room. Diane's voice, unmistakable, talking to someone I didn't recognize. I moved to a water fountain nearby. The project can't move forward without that parcel. The Cellar Foundation sits directly in the proposed stormwater easement. We've tried every legal avenue. A man's voice, steady, businesslike. Our investors have a 60-day window. If you can't deliver clear title, we'll need to reconsider the entire site plan. Diane, Glenn still has contacts in code enforcement. We have options we haven't deployed yet. And if structural concerns can't be manufactured, rural properties have a way of having accidents. Gas issues, foundation failures. These things happen. That was the sentence. Gas issues, foundation failures. These things happen. I had my phone recording before she finished the next thought. I stood at that water fountain for 11 more minutes and captured everything, including the name of the development firm, the investment timeline, and Diane describing in calm, businesslike language how an engineered accident at my cellar would create the grounds for emergency demolition. She wasn't frustrated, she wasn't emotional, she was planning. I called Marcus Webb from the parking lot. He was quiet for a moment. Then, that's conspiracy to commit property destruction. Potentially attempted arson depending on how the gas reference is interpreted. Combined with the federal benefits interference, she's built a RICO case against herself. Do not confront her. Come to my office tomorrow morning. I spent the next 3 weeks not confronting her. I spent those 3 weeks building a trap. My buddy from my unit, Jorge Cantu, runs a security installation business now. I called him the morning after the recording and told him I needed the most comprehensive property surveillance setup he could build on a veteran's budget. Jorge showed up 2 days later with a truck full of equipment and a look that said he'd been waiting to use some of this gear. We mounted primary cameras in obvious locations, good resolution, clearly visible, the kind that say this property is watched. Then we placed the real cameras in tree hollows, inside a birdhouse, in a weatherproof housing near the cellar vent, underneath the lip of the ramp. 6 independent angles covering every approach to the cellar entrance, all running to encrypted off-site storage. If someone brought a crew of 10, we'd capture every face from multiple directions. The audio setup was more sophisticated than anything I'd expected Jorge to source. Directional microphones calibrated to the cellar entrance, backup recording elements distributed around the perimeter, and vibration sensors along the path from the road. Whisper at the cellar door, we'd hear it in stereo, but the centerpiece was the lock. We removed my existing hardware and replaced it with a system that was invisible from outside inspection. The visible hardware, handle, surface mount hasp looked standard. Wasn't visible were steel deadbolts recessed into the door frame, driven by a silent servo motor controlled from my phone. No keys. No external mechanism to defeat. From the outside you couldn't tell the lock was anything other than a standard padlock from the inside. Once those bolts engaged, you weren't going anywhere until someone on the outside chose to release them. "What if someone's inside when you throw it?" Jorge asked. "Then they wait," I said. "In a ventilated, temperature-controlled space with 6 months of preserved food. They wait." We tested the system 40 times. Silent engagement. Silent release, instant response from anywhere on the property. Then I made a phone call I'd been designing for a week. "Diane, it's Decker. I've been thinking about what you said regarding a survey. I might be open to it." Pause. I could hear her recalibrating. "My grandfather built that cellar deeper than the drawings show. Old man never did explain why. Sealed sections nobody's opened since he died. Family always figured there was a reason he picked that specific spot during the Depression. Pure fabrication. But greed has a sound, and I heard it in the half-second of silence before she answered. I'd be very interested in coordinating that soon. Sooner the better. But I sleep early these days. Pain management schedule." She hung up fast. People in a hurry to take something always do. The following Tuesday night, her Range Rover circled my block 3 times between 10 and midnight. Wednesday night, 4 times, each pass slower. She was building momentum, talking herself into it, rehearsing the justification, just going to look. He invited me. Couldn't be helped. Thursday, my neighbor Mrs. Caldwell flagged me down at the mailboxes. She'd overheard Diane at the pharmacy talking to her sister, not quiet enough. Said she was going to handle it herself this weekend. Said she'd had a locksmith look at my cellar hardware and knew what she was dealing with. Said the veteran had made himself a soft target. I went home and texted Marcus Webb. "It's happening this weekend." His reply, "Recording equipment fully charged. Mine, all 6 feeds, 3 backup batteries, off-site upload active." His good call law enforcement the moment she enters. Not after. Friday night I didn't sleep much. Saturday I rechecked every system 4 times. Sunday I went to bed at 10. Fully dressed, phone on the nightstand, lock app open. At 2:54 in the morning, the motion sensor at the south fence line triggered. I watched on the infrared feed as Diane came through the back corner of my property, moving low and careful in dark clothing. A headlamp off for now, bolt cutters in her right hand, that canvas tote over her left shoulder. No accomplice, just her. She'd rehearsed the approach, took the route with the least sightlines from the road. She'd been walking this property in her head for months. She crouched at the cellar entrance for 4 minutes, testing, listening, checking the sightlines to my house one more time. Then she activated her headlamp, positioned the bolt cutters on my decoy padlock, and cut through it in 2 snips. The door opened. Cool air drifted up. She stood there a moment. I could see the headlamp beam sweeping down the stairs, and then she went in, descended all the way. The door drifted nearly shut behind her. I called the sheriff's non-emergency line. "This is Ray Decker at 4417 Old Mill Road in Ridgecrest Hollow. I need to report a breaking and entering in progress. The suspect is currently inside my root cellar. I have full video documentation. I am not in immediate danger. The dispatcher asked me to confirm the suspect was contained." "She entered voluntarily," I said. "She won't be leaving voluntarily." I opened the lock app, tapped the button. The deadbolts engaged with a sound you could only hear if you were listening for it. I put the kettle on. It took her 6 minutes to realize the door wasn't stuck. I know because the audio picked up the exact moment she shifted from pushing to pounding. The sound of someone discovering a situation is fundamentally different from what they believed it to be. "Hello? The door isn't opening?" "Hello," then sharper. "Decker, Decker, I know you're awake. Open this door." I poured my tea. For the next 40 minutes, Diane Holloway rotated through the full inventory of strategies she'd used on me for 8 months. Authority, threat, negotiation, tears, and discovered that none of them work when you're the one underground. She invoked Glenn's position twice. She threatened litigation 4 times. She offered to drop every outstanding HOA violation. She claimed she'd been invited, that this was a misunderstanding, that I was committing a crime. She tried claiming a medical condition. She tried silence. She eventually tried just talking to me honestly, which came out sounding more like the kind of confession you make when you think no one can help you. The deputies arrived 19 minutes after my call, 2 cruisers and a sergeant who'd apparently been briefed that the situation involved a county planning commissioner's wife. Sergeant Dana Phelps knocked on my door, looked at me standing in my kitchen doorway with a mug of tea, and said, "Mr. Decker, I understand you have a situation. I have a former HOA president inside my root cellar with the bolt cutters she used to break in," I said. "I have 6 camera angles of the whole thing. Would you like to see the footage before or after you retrieve her?" She watched 3 minutes of video on my phone. "Both," she said. I released the lock from the app. The door swung outward. Diane emerged into the flashlight beams of 2 deputies blinking like someone who'd been in a dark room too long, which she had. Her dark jacket was dusty. The headlamp was still around her forehead. She was still holding the bolt cutters. "Arrest him," she said, pointing at me. "False imprisonment. He lured me here and locked me in. This is kidnapping." Sergeant Phelps looked at the bolt cutters, looked at the destroyed padlock on the ground, looked at me in my bathrobe. "Ma'am," she said, "I'm going to need you to set those down." Diane looked at the bolt cutters in her hand as if she'd forgotten they were there. She was charged that night with breaking and entering, criminal mischief, and possession of burglary tools. Marcus Webb had the conspiracy recording and the federal interference documentation ready for the DA by Monday morning. The development firm quietly withdrew their application within the week. Nothing poisons a land deal like federal criminal investigation of the acquisition agent. Glenn Holloway resigned from the Planning Commission before charges reached his office. The marriage didn't survive the discovery that his wife had been running a property fraud operation that torched his political career along with everything else. Diane took a plea, 22 months, 5 years, supervised probation, restitution, real estate license surrendered. The judge, reading the pre-sentencing report, called it one of the most systematic and cynical abuse of process campaigns she had seen directed against a disabled veteran in her tenure on the bench. The HOA elected a new president, my neighbor Mrs. Caldwell, who is governed by the radical principle that community standards should apply to everyone equally and not serve as a weapon against people you're trying to displace. The root cellar still smells the same. Cold earth, mason jar rubber, the faint sweetness of dried herbs hanging from the ceiling joists. That smell means the same thing it always meant. Self-sufficiency, hard work, the specific pride of having built something that sustains you. The only thing that's changed is that Diane Holloway spent 2 hours in there against her will and left wearing handcuffs instead of a designer jacket. I want to leave you with something real. If you're dealing with a neighborhood bully right now, someone using official process as a weapon, targeting you because they think your circumstances make you vulnerable, hear this. They are always overconfident. They always underestimate the person they're going after, and they always eventually make a move that documents itself. Your job is to be ready when they do. Document everything. File everything. Build alliances with the neighbors who see what's actually happening. Find legal resources, veterans' legal aid clinics, tenant advocacy groups, state attorney general offices, and set your camera angles so that when the moment comes, you've got it from every direction. Patience isn't passive. Patience is what you do while you're building the trap. Hit subscribe if you want more of these stories. Drop your HOA horror story in the comments. The good ones get their own episode. I read everyone. My name's Decker. And if someone's coming for what's yours, make sure they come to you.